Hi, this is Andrea Gin, and I'm the producer and one of the hosts of Pop This. I'm just here to let you know that we are on a spring break this week, and in lieu of a new episode, we have gone into the archives and pulled up an old favorite for you to hear. This week, we're presenting the episode we did in 2019 on the biographical psychological drama Girl Interrupted, starring Angelina Jolie and Winona Ryder, and based on the 1993 memoir of the same name by Susanna Kaysen. Our guest for this episode is writer, theater maker, and choreographer Andrea Loewen, who is also the author of the book Feeling Better, a field guide to liking yourself. As you might suspect, her insight into how to go from self-loathing to self-liking came in handy in this episode. You'll also hear about Lisa's theory that Angelina Jolie has never been in a good movie, but we'll leave that up to you to decide. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoy it.
You're listening to Pop This, the podcast where two women talk about everything pop culture. Here are your hosts, Lisa Christiansen and Andrea Warner.
So I've noticed a disturbing Netflix trend. I don't know how far I want to delve into it. I have two. I think for an actual trend, you need three, right? Isn't that the...
Officially, trend pieces are instances of three.
Okay, well, I'm sure this won't be hard to find a third on this. So a couple of shows I've watched recently on Netflix. And I know we enjoyed the podcast Dirty John.
Yeah.
The Connie Britton TV version is now on Netflix.
Yes.
And there's also You, which we've discussed before, The Stalker.
Yeah.
So here's the situation. In the very first episode, we are treated and to meeting these lovely, beautiful, smart, talented women who are being screwed around by all these horrible men. And the only possible hope they have is some manipulative maniac who has learned the skills on how to listen to women and talk to them and do all the things that they've secretly been wanting all along. Therefore, telling us that the only men out there that will be worth your time and care about you are psychotic.
I mean, are they wrong?
I mean, yeah, I was wondering the same thing. It sounds kind of legit.
Yeah.
I know, and I know we're learning that all the time, that the men that are the most, I'm a real strong feminist and I super care about your project. And if you sleep with me, I could help you even more. What was that last bit?
Exactly. But I mean,
just slip it in there.
Just yeah. It's too no, it's not too soon. It's always I think like we see in any sort of situation where there is gross like manipulation and sort of that like sociopath kind of being depicted. I mean, there's a reason that like very smart people fall for scams,
Yeah, it's true. But I guess just watching it in the sort of context of the dating world, which is,
I think maybe don't watch them back to back to back.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. But and they both set up the same way, which is showing them like the Dirty John, which is very similar. Did you listen to the?
No, I have not listened to Dirty John.
Okay, you will find out our mystery guest.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
She's not a psychotic.
Well, we'll find out. I don't know.
She's learning about us now, and then she will unleash her power on us. But they both start out the same sort of way, which is, seeing them on horrible dates where these men are awful. But by the time we meet Psychotic Guy, are we meant to go, oh, I guess those were the normal guys that we should trust?
No, I mean, I think it's just like a very specific depiction, which is they're going to set us up with the worst possible people, swoop in with the, like, it seems so much better with this one. I mean, honest to God, I have been with Carlos almost 13 years, and I still, maybe once a month, will say to him, you're not secretly, like, a sociopath, right? as just a check-in measure.
But as if you would answer, yes. Like,
I know they wouldn't answer yes. I know they wouldn't answer yes.
they're a good
if they're good,
if he's
sociopath,
really good, he's playing a long game like I have never, ever, 13 years.
It is a long
like, when
con.
does it finally?
But sometimes you gotta wonder. I ask my boyfriend the same thing. I'll be like, so on this hike, is this your 4-year plan to take me on our 30th hike and then you kill me and leave me in the woods?
Yeah. No, I've had this question all the time, even since I was a kid. Honestly, even when like I would be, and maybe this just speaks to like the damage of having like, I accidentally watched The Burning Bed when I was 6, and it really
sounds terrifying.
It was Farrah Fawcett
a woman who's abused, murders her husband, and I accidentally watched this when I was like 6 or 7 years old, and it really just sent me on a dark path, I think, for the rest of my life. But even when I was a little kid, and my dad and I would be like going to do, we'd have to like go and check out like for like thrifting stuff because he had a secondhand store, and we'd have to drive to some like way far off like weird place. We'd be like in a cul-de-sac, and my brain would be like, I mean, I guess this could be where he snaps and kills me. I don't know. And I've just always had, I don't know if I carry that in my like that trauma code in my DNA. Like if I have had multiple experiences in the past of being like a woman murdered or something, or like something just terrible happening. I don't know. Or you listen to a lot of murder podcasts.
But no, but this is when I was 9.
Oh,
there's no good excuse for it.
But it's always been like unsolved mysteries.
Yeah.
Like ever since
we watched a lot of unsolved mysteries.
Birth, you see all these things, and like the woman gets.
Plus, there's
off.
like the what is it? The stranger danger that you're talked about in school.
Totally,
right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of that.
A man did lure me in Stanley Park. He and my grandma caught me before I could be taken away, but like I was like 4.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like he lured me in Stanley Park to go and like he wanted to like take a picture of me with a squirrel or something, and like I somehow my grandma like didn't, she was like, you know, paying attention to something else for a minute, and she like got me back within a couple of minutes, but it was dicey and it was not good.
Do you remember
terrifying moment?
I mean, I remember her telling me about it. I don't know if I really remember it. I'm not great at memories. In general, I blocked out huge chunks of my childhood.
That's a good one to block out.
But like, I just like stuff like this, like, you know, there's a reason, and I have witnessed and seen things that are not great, you know. Mm-hmm. So I think like it's just when it surrounds you, when there's like this constant sort of overhang of danger. We live in a society that is like, what, every sort of, you know, horrific mass shooting comes from a place of like femicide.
Yeah, no, I know.
So
exactly,
it's
no, I know, and it is an interesting thing because like in these kinds of dark crime and horror stories, you know, the ones that come out now and are successful are tapping into things that we
for sure
are concerned about, right? So Dirty John was a podcast, even though the story itself was, I guess, 2 or 3 years old.
Well, no, because it's he's still he's appealing his.
He's dead.
Oh yeah, he's dead. No, wait, he's
Dirty John's dead.
Dirty John's dead.
Sorry. Had to say that.
No, sorry.
Spoiler.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
No, yeah, you're right. Sorry, the other guy's not dead. The other one that's the Dr. Death, he's not dead.
Oh, okay,
He's appealing his conviction. Sorry, anyways.
John is not.
John is not. John's dead.
John's very dead.
John's super dead.
But yeah, I think it's only the story of the woman who was with him.
Yes.
Is only just a few years old. But it really took off on the podcast and then becoming a movie. Mm-hmm. And I just think that, you're right, don't watch these back to back.
Yeah, I can, like...
And I don't know if it's, like, you wonder, like, because also Netflix has a new dating show.
Like a reality show?
Yeah, and then I watched another one, which I shouldn't have watched. It was like, from Australia, it was like, getting back with your ex. And they have 4 different men, and 3 men, 1 woman, and they haven't seen these people for a long time.
I've heard of this.
Yeah.
It sounds horrific.
Well,
I
one
mean,
of them was...
entertainingly horrific.
Yeah, one of them was actually very sweet. There's just a long distance. They hadn't seen each other in 30 years.
Oh, wow.
And they just met when they were really, really young, and he lived in Australia and she lived in the States, and it was more like, I guess this would be really difficult. I mean, who knows now with the internet?
With
it would be FaceTime, right?
There you go.
Yeah, it was,
well, that's kind of cute.
And it was, and they were both single when they met up.
Oh, that's nice.
And that was lovely, but you're right. It was twisted and horrible. But I just feel like there's this general trend of like, look at these kinds of stories right now that are just very troubling to women.
I mean,
and I know know it's a troubling time for women too.
Yeah.
And our rom-coms maybe are just like, no, nobody wants those now. You want this.
No, I think what I do is when I find myself in a real dark, like after I've listened to multiple things about stabby hands, I am like, you know what?
Like Edward Scissorhands?
Yeah, basically. I'm like, okay, you know what? I need to take a step back because I'm starting to feel unsafe, you know?
Yeah.
And so then I pivot to comedy podcasts.
Yes.
That are not about murder.
Yeah.
Because, I do listen to comedy podcasts about murder. So I pivot to ones that are like just straight up funny and not about murder at all. And that really is a nice palate cleanser. And sometimes it takes me like 6 weeks of that kind of
I agree. It does.
to be able to like shed the ickies. And then I can kind of, if I want, make my way back to the ickies.
Yeah, which we do.
We do all the time.
I can't help it. Life creeps
We have
in.
dark souls,
Dark
and we
souls.
want
I know.
we want to indulge it, right?
I know,
Yeah.
but I just feel like I'm looking forward to the next trend where it's not just that the only really nice men in movies are the psychopaths who know how to listen to. That's I think the most troubling and upset me the most is that we had to see these women on these series of terrible dates where the men are just like, loudish and talking about themselves and just not, and then the psychopath comes in and he's like, no, tell me about you. And you're like, oh my God, every woman's dream. I've been talking so much. Please tell me about you.
Oh, I just felt so great just then.
You want to hear about me? I do. Let me just do a body pose now that looks like I'm really listening. Let's go.
You've got a really good natural listening body pose.
You do.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
a psychopath. So.
You're listening to Pop This. I'm Andrea Warner.
And I'm Lisa Christiansen.
And our third voice is the wonderful, talented Andrea Loewen.
Hello.
Yay! We're so excited to have you on. Thank you so much. We're taping this the day before the launch of your first book.
Yeah, it's wild. It's very surreal.
What a big week for you.
It's
Just
busy.
us and then this book thing? I
I
I
know.
mean, from this all downhill.
You don't even need any whipped cream. You're done. It's like it's capped.
The book launch tomorrow is actually nothing because I've done this now. So
we're excited to have you here. Thank you so much.
thank you, and I'm very excited because we have the three Andreas.
Yeah,
all
I know. I
together
feel a little
here.
bit outnumbered. No, quite a bit outnumbered,
And
actually.
your name is the name of the quote unquote villain of our film.
Oh yeah.
Good times for me. Yeah. Misunderstood genius, I prefer.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
She is very smart. So
Yeah,
She is.
so-
She is wily. Wily is all that.
Wily.
And you know what? I can really see you in that coat.
Oh, okay, but hopefully
think-
not that hair.
No, not the hair. The hair's
No,
not great.
But it's
The
a
hair's
great
not-
coat.
Great
It is.
coat.
It is.
Such a
I think she
coat.
lent it to Kate Hudson for Almost Famous after, didn't
That
she?
would make
Yeah,
sense.
you
That
know,
would make sense.
Good
Yeah.
tie-in.
Late 60s, early 70s. Here, you take the coat.
So we are talking about, and we'll introduce you in a second. So
Sure.
we're just gonna introduce what we're talking about. We are talking about, it's the 20th anniversary of Girl Interrupted.
And she's still being interrupted.
Still
20 years
20
on.
years. Girl cannot get a
Cannot
sentence out of her
ju-
mouth all the time.
Yeah.
So this movie, man, I had not seen it since 1999.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, yeah, we'll get into it, but like, I was not prepared for like the who's who of young
Oh,
actors
I
in
know.
this film,
Yeah.
and some of whom have left us. R.I.P. Brittany Murphy.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing.
I almost didn't recognize Elizabeth Moss.
Yeah, well, I
With
mean,
good
she's
reason.
got some prosthetic
She
stuff
does.
happening, so
She
yeah,
does,
yeah.
yeah.
But wow, just anyway.
Shall I read?
Yeah, please.
Girl Interrupted is a 1999 American psychological drama film based on Susanna Kaysen's 1993 memoir of the same name. It chronicles Kaysen's 18-month stay at a mental institution. Directed by James Mangold, the film stars Winona Ryder, who also served as an executive producer.
Go
as
Winona.
Kaysen.
Sorry.
What is it? What's that? Prescient about her
Yeah.
life in a
I'm
few
just-
years, actually?
Look, I'm just excited that in 1999, she was using her clout to be an executive producer.
Yeah, in a film that only showed her face. But anyway, I'll keep going. With a supporting cast that includes Angelina Jolie, Brittany Murphy, Clea Duvall, Whoopi Goldberg, Elizabeth Moss, and Vanessa Redgrave.
So good.
Did I do a good Vanessa Redgrave?
That was
Thank
beautiful.
you very
That was
much.
great. Fun fact, 2018, Amy Mann talked about how she's working on the music for a stage adaptation of Girl Interrupted.
No.
Can you imagine how great that's going to be?
Amy Mann?
Amy Mann.
Oh,
I can
am
see
there.
that,
Me
actually.
too.
I
Me
hear it.
too.
Yeah.
Oh my God, so excited.
Yes.
So excited. Sorry, I just jumped
And
ahead to
I
that fun
also
fact.
should mention that Angelina Jolie won an Academy Award for her performance, Best Supporting Actress, and a Golden Globe.
Oh, I
and
forgot about
kissed
that.
her brother. So I think we all remember many different things about that time.
I mean, it was a great time. It was a great time. So the background of the film, in case you are not aware of it, set in the changing world of the late 1960s, Girl Interrupted is the searing true story of Susanna Kaysen, a young woman who finds herself at a renowned mental institution for troubled young women, where she must choose between the world of people who belong on the inside, like the seductive and dangerous Lisa, or the often difficult world of reality on the outside. Now, I have a lot of feelings about this film,
Yeah.
but first, let's introduce our guest.
Yes.
Officially.
Yes, and get her feelings.
Yeah, I want your feelings too.
So many feelings.
So many feelings.
I'm sure.
Andrea Loewen is a writer, theater maker, and choreographer in Vancouver, BC. In her spare time, she reads a lot of fantasy novels, ideally with her cat on her lap and a mug of tea in her hand. Her cat's name is Gertie, by the way.
Gertie.
Miss Gertie Marie.
Miss Gertie
is actually
Marie.
her
I'm
full
sorry.
name.
I'm
Miss
sorry.
Gertie
Her
Marie.
full
All
name.
right. Glad
She'll
to
be
have
upset
that.
if she doesn't get a proper credit.
Not full.
Yeah.
That's fair. Her first book, Feeling Better, A Field Guide to Liking Yourself, is released this month.
Yeah.
Yay!
Yeah.
Well, this month being when we taped it, February 2019. You might be hearing this in March. We don't know. Sorry.
So the book's out. You're late to the game, but you can still get it.
Yeah.
Is
It's still
basically
Yeah, you
available.
can
the
still,
story here.
yeah, okay. But you know, check in on all the hype first, you know, and then pick it up.
So much hype.
So much hype.
So much hype.
So much hype.
Well, that's what we do. We're on the podcast. We're also hype women. Too,
Yeah, we
so-
are hype women for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so Lisa, had you seen Girl Interrupted before?
No.
This is your first time seeing Girl Interrupted.
Yeah, I know.
Amazing.
And now nobody can see the actual look of horror in your face.
No, not horror. I'm just like, wow.
You know what I
okay.
do? I do something called read reviews before I see movies. And the reviews for this were not good.
So then you didn't see
I did
it.
not, because there's other things to see, and it didn't. I should have. You know, actually, it surprises me I didn't, because you know things like reading The Bell Jar or something.
Yeah.
I really was intrigued by that. You know, like all normal women.
You
who
love,
are.
Of course, yeah.
you love explorations of mental health in women.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I do. But it just, I don't know if there was just something sort of cloying about the entire experience in the movie, the way it was being pitched. And then when Angelina Jolie won, I am not a big fan of Angelina Jolie's.
You
Fair.
seem very nervous to say that.
No, I like Angelina Jolie, but it's not like I run her fan club. I mean, it's just a thing.
You're just like the secretary.
Like, have I thought about what it would be like to make out with her? Yes.
As a normal person,
As a normal person.
I'm a million% intrigued by her personal life.
Yeah.
Of course.
I mean,
Yeah.
all 6 of what the Daily Mail calls her brood.
Yeah. No,
Fascinate me
but
to
even
no
like,
end.
Even back with Billy Bob Thornton and how
That-
gross
yes.
he is.
Yes.
And that would have been kind of contemporary to this, right?
Well,
all their weirdness.
Around there, but also,
The Vial of Blood Time and
I saw her very first film, Hackers, when that came out, and I loved Hackers, and I thought she was so good. And I was like, who is this fresh face? And she was with Johnny Lee Miller.
Yes.
And they were married, and they were like 20 years
I love
old.
him. Is he okay? Because he was just in that Sherlock
thing?
show, right? I mean, also Trainspotting, right?
I mean,
Yeah.
he's done
Yeah.
some stuff. But I loved her, like, from, like, kind of like that. It was like, I was a teenager. And so I was like, who is this fresh young face with this, like, weird, like, elfin haircut? And she seems so tough. And so I really loved Winona Ryder as well. Like, I loved so many of her movies when I was, like, a young person. So this was catnip for me in 1999.
Well, yeah, because it made Winona Ryder look like a serious actress.
Ooh, fighting words. Such fighting words.
This is lots of shade over here.
So much shade.
Yeah, because Reality Bites wasn't enough for you, hey?
Look, no, it wasn't. It wasn't. It was. This is a character who absolutely is a through line from Lydia in Beetlejuice.
Yes.
Well, actually, from Veronica to Lydia to Susanna Kaysen. Like there's a easy through line through all of them. And Reality Bites fine.
Yeah.
Andrea, did you see it when it came out?
Oh, I saw it. Yes. I was, I'm going to say 14 or 15 when it came out.
Yep.
And I saw it with my best friends, and we identified, I think I told you when you asked me about this movie, to a dangerous degree, I think, with the women, with both Winona and Angelina.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
We just wanted to, they were the cool girls of the mental institution.
Yep.
I will say I got very distracted, and Winona's wardrobe in this movie is so fantastic.
It's
that
great.
gamine look, her striped, and the little
Yeah.
sweater with that boat collar that kind of made her look like Bridget Bardot. Like, it was styled. Mwah.
Oh, very classic.
Very,
Yeah.
very classic.
Yeah, that whole like dangerous thing of like just wanting to identify with the cool girls in the mental institution. I love that was me too. Honestly,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. Like, and is this the most sensitive depiction of like women in mental hospital? No.
What?
Well, it's not. I was just mentioning, have you seen One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest?
You know, I haven't.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've seen that. And I said once is good because that's a very different.
I think on some level this really was pitched as like, this is like the Calvin Klein model version of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's
It's
Nest.
got
you know?
a very
Like,
similar
it's supposed
premise.
to be softer and like...
So someone who's not really very mentally ill goes into an institution and
kind of screws around with the regular patients who are also very confused about their role. And there's instead of like a nasty nurse like in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, they don't get Whoopi Goldberg.
Oh, sure.
The magical black woman that will take care of you. And
when I saw her...
When you're 14, I don't blame you for going, that was okay, because we didn't know that
course.
trope then.
I did not remember. So three things about rewatching this movie, can I just confess? One, I did not remember that it took place in the late 60s. I thought it was a fully contemporary film.
Wow.
Me
I
too.
do not remember that at all.
Well, but the strange, Angelina Jolie's wardrobe is not, it was like an anachronism in this movie.
It really looks like the 70s.
It really, it did not
it
go
does.
with all the little 90s that were up to the top that had that late 60s, or Winona's wardrobe, and even what the nurses were wearing. It
But
didn't
even her tanks and stuff, very 90s.
Yeah, the bell bottom kind of,
Yeah.
it didn't, I was confused.
None of it really worked. Number two, I had forgotten just how racist it was on many places.
Yeah.
I did not remember that at all. But I also did not remember it as being kind of like this thing that has a commentary about the lack of options for women. Like I didn't remember it being a feeling as progressive to a certain extent as it does, because it takes women's pain seriously. So there was like a bunch of things that I did not remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like there's a moment, it says something about how, women have more options now. And she goes, no, we don't.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and just like the trope, the refrain,
Yeah, but she's saying that to
nothing's
Vanessa
changed.
Redgrave, who's going, oh, please. You want to see the options I had?
Well, and that's the thing. And I mean, her options,
Which would have been the 30s.
and I mean,
Right.
she's already,
Yeah,
she's this
good
like,
point.
but she's this like young person who's like, I don't care about burning my bras. She lists all these things. Like she is a sort of an apathetic presence who is uninterested in the feminist movement, and yet identifies as someone who is oppressed by her, like being by her gender. And it's so I
In
feel
in the weakest way possible.
no, I know, but I think that's the point of this character. Is that,
Yeah,
like,
well, and that did not compel me.
Well,
I mean, it was
and she does get called out for it,
Yeah,
right?
she does. She does. And that's, I guess, sort of like my overall problem with it is like I mean, I like to identify with someone, and really honestly wanted Winona's peacoat too. But the whole Lisa was so far over into that, to a side that I didn't even understand. Like I was so confused about her manicness all the time. Mm-hmm. And then we had this, the cool girl in the corner writing in her journal, just like, smoking French cigarettes. And I did not feel any sense of honesty from either. I didn't know what was going on.
I don't know. Maybe that's just the mental illness.
Yeah, I don't know. And so I didn't find myself being drawn. There were such extremes.
Yeah.
Such extremes.
Like, this is not a movie that deals in nuances
No.
No.
And I think that in like a movie like, and I kept going back to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, that does. The entire movie is just about what is mental illness.
Okay. Yeah, so a little more of that dance, the line, which they hint at. They try and have some of that nuance of like, oh, is she going to be crazy or not? And then, but it's...
so I wasn't just sure if it was like a really cool dorm or...
Well, yeah, there was a bowling alley.
Yeah,
It's the coolest dorm.
And everyone
seemed
seemed
dark dorm, though. I'm gonna say, like, it's
it wasn't a great dorm.
Yeah,
I mean,
like
it was definitely community college level for sure.
free drugs. I mean,
free drugs and
free laxatives. I mean,
chicken
right?
carcasses. I mean,
who doesn't want that?
Free drugs and laxatives. Yeah,
I can never remember to take.
Honestly,
mine.
you understand very clearly what she's saying about a lack of choices for women at that point, because although it's a facility that takes women's problems seriously, it also just seeks to medicate them and make sure they don't gain weight. This is a problem. Like, I mean, you obviously, there's also like a bunch of stories that we don't get to delve into because we are spending time with these two sort of like the dance between Elisa and Susanna.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, there is a woman who is in there because she's gay. There's a woman who is in there because she obviously has a lot of attachment issues to animals and questions about her self-worth.
Yeah.
Lit herself on fire. There's a woman who is anorexic, and that's why she's in there.
And is being abused by her father, which...
There's another one who...
How is it that Angelina Jolie knows that, but the facility doesn't? I don't...
Or he pays enough money so they don't care.
That's the thing. I think there's like, and there is some exploration of class stuff that's happening, which I think is interesting. But I was actually just really pleasantly surprised that it like so many other things we've watched that I haven't watched in 20 years. And I'm like, wow, this is trash. And this, I was like, you know what? It holds up a little bit. Not perfect.
No,
but it
not
holds
perfect.
up.
Yeah.
No, but I did like, I was still into the story.
Me
into
too.
following it with them and going, and, you know, at the end when they're underground and, you know, hoping she doesn't get stabbed with a needle. Sorry, these spoilers. Are we worried about spoilers?
No,
that was super
20
vague,
years
so
old.
it's not really a
20 years
spoiler.
old.
Anyways.
Yeah. I guess what it does though is it is not a very respectful depiction, perhaps, of the nuances of mental health.
No.
Although there was one moment that I loved, and it could be seen as disrespectful, but I felt like it was these women owning the fact that everyone thought that they were just crazy and wouldn't take them seriously when they're in that cafe. And the rich woman comes and, of course, reams her out for sleeping with the husband instead
of course, her husband.
She probably didn't yell at her husband at all for it. And they just start barking at her.
Oh, my God.
And you can see them clock it. They're like, oh, she's afraid of us.
Yeah.
Great. And they just go for it.
Which is literally ripped out of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Oh, really?
Yes, just exact scene.
Well, great. Maybe I should go watch that movie.
Yeah, well, but you will have a very different experience. But anyway,
I do like the solidarity of it. Like, I mean, I do think that. So I've never read the book. Has anybody here read the book?
No. And I think it's fair to note that the author was very disappointed in the film.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because she wrote the book in such a way as it was more, it wasn't linear.
Oh, so there were like the flashbacks.
At the beginning, they did more of the flashbacks, and then it sort of seemed to not follow through with that. But she didn't like the way it was done. They also, she thought it was just sensationalized. There was never a time where they ran away, which they did in the movie.
Oh.
That did not happen.
So they just threw that in.
They just threw that in because it was more interesting. And also, the title of the story, Girl Interrupted, is just half of a title of a painting by Vermeer. It's called Girl Interrupted Looking at a Painting.
Oh.
And she felt that it was, that by just using Girl Interrupted, that's a whole other sounding title than the fact that she took it from an actual painting.
Interesting.
So I feel like it's interesting. My spidey sense was just telling me that this was Winona Ryder had come across this book. This was a good project for her. This was the time for her. She wanted to do something serious, and this is the one. But you can't do it just like this book. because it wouldn't have made sense, right? I mean,
Right.
that structure, and probably it was just unattractive, right? It's like everyone in this looked quite attractive.
Well, one of the things that Nathan Rabin for the AV Club, he said that basically, like, based on the book, he was like, by converting Kaysen's tale into a story of female bonding and personal growth, Mangold has sapped the work of much of its understated power, and in the process, muffled its still relevant social message that mental hospitals are often just backwards holding pens for society's malcontents. So I think in the book, apparently, we have like a more nuanced story, because it is sort of like this lived experience thing, and it's more commentary on, like, you know, just the limited capacity for any, you know, for. And it sounds so gross, but like, just like, you know, the classic makeover story, but through a mental hospital is just extra yucky. Like, I mean, it's.
But it should also, this is interesting too, because I read a piece, an interview with the author talking when the book came out, and she was shocked at how successful it was. Like, she'd written some other things, but this thing took off. And the same response you had to the movie, young girls had to the book.
Sure.
And they were flocking to her. They were trying to get her phone number. They were accosting her. This is me. This is me. And she was, I really don't know what you're talking about, because that's not, you're not anything at all. Like, I don't know what you're seeing in this. This was very much her story about a person that still to this day isn't really entirely sure if she was mentally ill in there, or just taking a break from what she felt. So it's interesting that I mean, that's an interesting conversation right there. How did this movie and this book tap in to something that a whole bunch of girls and young women?
Well, because we're so dismissed. Like, honestly, like, people don't listen to us. Like, goes back to the beginning of our topic, or like when you introduced that topic of like men listening to women and secretly being psychopaths. Like, just in terms of people taking our stories seriously, taking each other seriously. I mean, I think representation, like being, and having that sort of pain visibly, even if it's not elegantly etched out on screen, it's still visible, you know? Like, I mean, I think about, like, when I was, like, 15, I'm pretty sure it was 14 or 15, but I just, like, stopped speaking to my friends for several months in, like, a fit of depression. And, like, most people don't even really remember that, and people weren't really paying attention because I was just writing all the time, so it was, like, you know, I could kind of hide in that. It wasn't really a big deal. But, like, basically, I just shut down for, like, several months, and just because who knows why, you know, but there's just, like, so much going on when you are a teenage girl that is so complicated and so, I don't know, messy, and you don't have a place to put that because you're told that you have to, like, conform to various expectations.
Oh, yeah.
I would like to read the book, because I just felt like we were just a bit cheated with the beginning of the book. The movie was just very, like, cliche of 60s tropes, you know, the house party, the mom in that perm.
Oh, sure.
You know,
and, like, gotta look nice for the company and parading the daughter around.
Yeah, and then that we were somehow led to believe that that's why she completely crashed mentally. And I thought, that's really not fair. There had to be, I mean, even the relationship we knew she was having with with that older man. We did get to see her scene where she was very much she was, you know, I'm not saying she wasn't traumatized by it, because there was definitely a problem, but
totally.
But she was very much like, done, you know, like she just hated this guy.
Yeah.
And, you know, she was pushing him out the door, and I really want to see you again, and she was like, you're gross, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't get a sense that had caused her huge trauma. Enough to commit suicide. And then she was even ambivalent about that for a while, whether or not drinking vodka and aspirin was enough.
So that was supposed to be her big revelation, is that she finally admits that she tried to kill herself.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, and that wry humor in the beginning of, I had a headache.
Yeah.
You know, that was one of the things when I was a teenager watching and going, she's so smart and funny. And like, these rube therapists think she tried to kill herself, but she just had a headache.
Yeah.
Like, oh, goodness.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I definitely think the reason they chose to put aspirins in here is probably because you're definitely meant to go, she's not entirely sure what she wanted to have happen, but she definitely wanted to self-harm.
Self-harm for sure, yeah.
I think
and
that-
cause people
yeah.
to look at her and ask some questions.
I think that thing she says at one point about she just wanted it to stop. So she might not have actually actively wanted to kill herself, but she just wanted to shut that down for at least a little while.
Yeah.
Which I guess she was successful. She did shut down her life for a little while.
Yeah, and I mean, part of me was, sort of, so just 18 months with some books and some questionable meals. I'm okay. Like, it didn't... I mean, you have to hang out with some of those other people and things, too.
She also did end up, like, sort of giving into the extensive therapy.
Yes, she did.
And
Finally,
I think the act of seeing that, I mean, Jeffrey Tambor, who we have now know to be not a cool dude at all, and was not in this film either. He was fine, but he was like ineffective and useless. Mm-hmm. Vanessa Redgrave is the one who really is able to sort of get through to her.
Oh, she's fantastic.
She's so good.
It's like one of the only times you see a therapist in a movie who's good.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
They're all so terrible.
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
It hurts my heart because I love my counselor so much.
Yeah, I know,
yeah.
and because a really good therapist, and that's the frustration of watching the movies, waits for you to make the point. You have to get there.
Yeah.
And they'll see you 100 times until you go, uh-huh. Mm-hmm. They're not giving you the uh-huh.
Yeah.
And so that's why it was I really enjoyed that unfolding of watching okay, wait it out. Eventually you'll get there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I like Vanessa Redgrave.
And they do tie it into like a whole, I mean, I think it's a little perhaps simplistic as a cure-all for everyone. That's not, like, it's not going to be that way for everybody. But, like, specifically for Susanna's journey, and they keep sort of relating it back to the Wizard of Oz and Dorothy and how she had the power inside herself all along, but she had to come to that conclusion. I mean, I think that there is something there about just even I think it speaks to, like, again, women being sort of gaslit so perpetually that they don't know how to listen to themselves and don't know how to help themselves in so many situations. They don't know and they don't know how to ask for help either, because again, they're supposed to sort of fix everything for everybody else and do the emotional labor and do all of the other kinds of things. I don't know. I think that's one of the things that I still really like about this movie is that I think it does talk about some of that stuff. Not well sometimes.
Well, but it's also interesting because her diagnosis is borderline personality disorder, which I actually had to look up after because that's not one of the ones that everyone just talks about all the time.
It's kind of fallen out of fashion at this point.
But it was basically reading the symptoms. It's like unsure about yourself and your place in the world and like constantly shifting views on like your confidence. I was like, oh, that's just being a woman in the world?
No, exactly. Good point. Yeah.
No, it's such a, and I just like, I mean, if you even just like think about whenever I was watching Masters of Sex, when it was first on, and like just the ways in which, people would talk about like how they used to like cure a woman's, I don't know, depression with like, prescribed masturbation. And just like that as sort of like a simple cure-all. Like, oh, you mean if we'd just been letting women feel pleasure, they wouldn't end up in like all of these like sort of dire situations? Tell me more, doctor.
Yeah.
Tell me more. I don't know. And I just think about like, Susanna's written off as like this promiscuous person, and like, I mean,
if that's promiscuous,
which is
that?
Yeah, I know. Even from a '60s lens,
I know.
Really?
That's the thing.
This is promiscuous.
Particularly
She's
from
got
a
like
60s lens.
two partners that we know of,
Yeah.
and then the orderly in the hospital.
Yeah, I
You're
know.
Like, okay.
And that was just out of boredom. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
like, and he was the first person to say something nice to her.
See?
Because
There
he
we
said
go.
he liked her for who she was.
Yes.
Yeah, psychotic.
Well,
Obviously.
I mean,
It's been working through the wards for the last 6 years.
well, that is one of those pickup artist moves, right? You
It
go
sure
for the
is.
ones who are a little bit
That's a
off
whole pick of the
kilter.
litter there, then, right?
Oh my
Take the
goodness.
vulnerable ones.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, take them down a notch, then the compliment, right?
Oh, God.
Yeah, or
There's the
just wait
pickup,
until
yeah.
the staff takes them down.
Yeah,
and then,
exactly.
So much
Then you
predatory
move on in.
behavior. So much predatory behavior.
Oh, boy.
Your book is literally a field guide to liking yourself. So
Yes, if only she had read my book.
Right?
She would be fine. It's just
18 months she can get back of her life.
Yeah.
But I mean, in all seriousness, like, you know, sort of you dealing with your depression, and I mean, how was it watching this movie for you on the other side of some big life moments for you?
For sure. Yeah. Well, so first of all, it was like horrified at how much I had identified with the characters as a teenager and going like, oh yeah, when you're a kind of depressed teen girl, you're just going to latch on to any depiction of that you see. And then I completely didn't identify with the healing part of her journey. So now watching it, I kind of went, oh, right, this is the good part. This is the part where she decides to use the place to actually try and heal and to embrace who she is. Yeah. And that's the part that, I mean, and everyone needs, what I've realized is people talk about their like aha moments in healing. Yeah. And I think what it really is that you have a moment where you realize it's worth it to do the work to try and get better. And then you do. And so she finally has that moment. And then you go, okay, thank goodness. Now this is the part that people should actually be paying attention to, is how she talks to her counselor and how her journaling changes and how she's focusing in a different way. And so that was actually pretty cool. And seeing that, it felt legit, that part for me. Yeah. It's a little cheesy in a movie. Yeah. But legit in terms of mental health healing that I identified with anyways. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that part did feel really good to like watch that sort of unfold. What felt extra gross, maybe? Mm-hmm.
Seeing Brittany Murphy hanging off a shower curtain
rod.
rod.
I mean, that was heartbreaking. But
especially knowing how we don't. Yeah.
Brittany Murphy did a beautiful job in this movie.
Yes,
she really did.
Yeah.
And I actually think all the young actors did a really beautiful job in this movie.
They were lovely.
Yeah. And I mean, yes, it goes off the rails with like trying to create. It's as if the director was like, okay, well, we know we have to put a really like, we're going to make this a psychological horror or something at the end. Yeah. And it just felt like it sold out everybody with that final scene in the basement. Like, it would be so much more fulfilling. Yes, fine, have Lisa read the journal and have her, like, expose all of these sort of hidden, like, that's a great...
perfect bully moment, exactly what her character would do.
Exactly.
Yeah. Worked well in Mean Girls. Why not?
Yeah, exactly.
No,
it's a great trope.
It is. It's amazing.
It's perfect. Mm-hmm. But I mean, just like all the other stuff that goes with it. And I do think it does get to like sort of that thing where, you know, we see that Susanna can be really terrible as well. Like she can sort of default to a very dark coldness when she tells like Lisa that, you know, no one cares if she dies. Like it's a, you know, and she knows that it's going to hurt to a certain extent. I mean, it's a ridiculous scene, frankly.
Mm-hmm. Well, and why would you yell at a person who's chasing you with a needle that like no one cares if you die? Just why.
Just inviting,
she's chasing you with a needle.
She has shown herself to be very impetuous.
Yeah,
throughout this entire story. Yeah.
I'm really the most disingenuous part of the story, I think, is that instead of stabbing her, she breaks down and cries.
Oh, completely.
Like that part going like, no, I don't think she has that within her to be affected by those words.
Not if she's actually a sociopath.
Exactly.
Like that's the thing. Like I feel like she is also misdiagnosed. But I think that that's one of the things that the movie does tell us.
Well,
yes. All of these women are wildly misdiagnosed because they are women and it's the late 60s.
Yeah. Or now, because there's still lots of evidence that women's pain is not taken seriously by doctors.
For sure. Mm-hmm. For sure. So much misdiagnosis all over the place.
Yep.
I just got very also just it felt a lot like a Winona Ryder vanity project too, a lot of the time.
See, I have more patience for Winona Ryder, and because I just feel like
I don't dislike her. I just felt there were so many dewy pictures of her face, like laying in the bed and on this side of the bed, and I just felt like
that feels like the director's kind of, or the cinematographer's kind of in love with her.
But she's the executive producer too.
I know, I get it.
And there's just I get you want this, projects. Especially I have to say, now that we've watched Russian Doll.
Oh,
could you imagine this with Natasha Lyonne?
Oh my God.
Oh, I love that show.
Okay, so
Yeah.
imagine that.
Yeah,
Imagine
yeah.
somebody with a bit more gravitas and someone who
yeah.
felt like they'd lived and someone you could have like, I'm sorry, I just didn't feel Winona Ryder in any of this.
Although you said someone who felt like they lived, I think her character hasn't really
Well,
lived.
they hadn't. That's fair. Yeah, that's true.
You know.
Yeah, that's true. So she did have sort of a, I know sometimes I felt sorry for her and this is the very first time I ever thought about this watching this movie. I thought like when you hear about like the women's lib movement started and all those things, I've had conversations with my mom and she's just like, yeah, I had kids to take care of. Like I just,
Right.
and I'm so,
yeah.
why didn't you just strap us on the back and head out there? And she's like,
I was busy.
I was busy and not particularly bothered, and sure, it sounds great, but, and so I started seeing her, this character, thinking, well, what if that just wasn't where, she was like, yeah, I want to be a writer.
Right.
Like, shouldn't you be really doing something? Maybe, like.
Well, yeah, because I mean, I think sometimes about 2 generations from now, what people are going to be going like, well, why weren't you doing this at that time?
Yeah.
And you're like, well, I had a job.
Yeah,
and then
I know.
had 2 side hustles, and I was busy.
Yeah, it sounded like a
And
good idea. I'm not
I
kidding.
liked the thing on Facebook for it. That
Yeah,
was the best I could do.
did. I retweeted some really clever people who had some really good thoughts.
Really important.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just so watching that character, you're right, that she hadn't lived and that was good about her. But I suppose that was the part that kind of made her a little bit vague. Which, again, maybe that was...
I think that is actually the nature of what she was going through
Yes,
and stuff, but
yes.
it doesn't make for a particularly interesting
It doesn't...
movie.
Ennui is not a word we like
Yeah.
to show on screen, is it?
I mean, we got it with the cigarettes. They were French.
Oh,
Yeah.
there you go. That meant she
that
was deep.
beautiful box, too.
That was a beautiful
It's
box.
true.
I really liked
Lisa,
it.
you have a theory that Angelina Jolie has never been in a good movie.
I've never seen one.
Yes, you...
Tomb Raider?
I brought that up, too. Okay.
I mean, it's terrible, but she's strong, so that's
and I
fun.
knew you threw out Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
I like Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
It was fine. Would you actually call that a good movie, though?
I thought she was good. I think she is legitimately good in this. Sorry,
I feel like she's one of those characters, though, that it was the male gaze again, creating what they like crazy to be.
Oh yeah, she was.
1,000%.
Yeah. She was the sexy,
yes.
unhinged,
Yeah.
totally.
No,
but she
no.
did a good job of it.
No,
But that's the
she
thing. Like,
did, but
I think she does a great job of it. Like, it's not her fault that she's stuck in this sort of role through James Mangold's lens. You know what I mean? Like, I think she does a really good job with this. And I liked her in Hackers.
Okay, you can't keep Hackers a good movie. It's probably
I know
on
no one
like
says Hackers is a
40% or
good movie.
something.
I get it. But yeah, like I mean, there's. I feel like she hasn't had a role yet that really like allows her to like sort of dig in.
Talk about vanity projects. That last one she made with Brad Pitt, where they're like out in like the French Riviera, and she's having an affair.
I don't even
and-
know. I've
Right?
I've checked out on her a little bit.
She's
to be honest.
directing
Yes,
it. She directed and wrote it. It was just about a couple and
I'm not intrigued by that.
Yeah.
It's like a body heat where the hotel's really hot.
Oh,
and
no,
people
no.
are glancing at each other while they
sure.
smoke.
But
and-
like, is this a good movie?
It's okay.
It's okay. I mean,
It's
it's
okay.
not. It's not the worst
Yeah.
movie I've ever seen, and I did like the period. It's funny that neither of you knew it to look like a period piece, though, which makes me laugh.
totally
forgot. It's like I forgot.
Which is the
entirely.
power of good style, I must say.
Maybe. Yeah. Well, and mental institutions have always been depicted in the same way, right? It's
Yeah.
always these
Yeah.
bland hallways, the sort of living room where everyone hangs out and
Yeah.
watches TV, and the person standing in their doorway just sort of staring at you as you walk by. So, I don't know, timeless.
Yeah, it's a
mental
timeless.
institutions.
It's a timeless look. But yeah, I mean, I didn't hate everything about it. I just didn't feel like it was all the parts came together to make one good movie.
Yeah. So we also do like to declare whether something pops or not. Where are you on this, Lisa?
No, I'm not popping.
No pops.
Sorry. I'm sorry, Winona.
That's
I was the only person that liked you in Little Women.
it's true. It's true.
That's something.
Andrea?
You know, I think I'm still going to give it a pop.
I am too.
Yeah.
I really, you know what? I have it's not great, but it holds up way better than I thought it would. And I think that the performances are quite good. And like again, not perfect, but I still like it enough that it pops.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the worst movie I've ever seen. It just
No,
didn't.
for sure.
it
We've
didn't- I
definitely
didn't feel
watched
like
worse.
It didn't hold all the ways. I think if I could like fix it, then I might like it. Like I would edit out almost everybody else in the movie, and I would just do like a really cool sort of one of those weird short things where you just see the appointments, those kinds of.
Oh, sure.
Like what's that show called that Gabriel
Lie
Byrne
to
was
Me
in,
or Listen to Me
I
or
have no idea.
it's something like Lie to Me.
Yeah, and they just like short the visits.
Oh, okay, yeah.
therapist
that sounds fun.
appointments. Yeah.
And then just cut that voiceover at the end because that was
that was
brutal.
bad.
Yeah, it's the same cab driver.
Bad.
I
Yeah.
know. What a coincidence.
No, terrible.
Well, maybe he's the only cab driver in town. It wouldn't seem like such a coincidence because it looked very small.
It was a small town. Thank you so much, Andrea, for joining us. This has been great.
You.
We love to leave our episodes on something we recommend. As our guest of honor, would you like to go first?
Well, sure. So at first I had thought about Russian Doll, but we already mentioned it. So I'll just give that an extra thumbs up. There is a musician I've started listening to recently. Her name is Eklo, like Echo, but with an L. She's fantastic. I just love her. And if I had found her in high school, I would have been obsessed with her. But now I'm too busy for obsession, so I just like her.
Good for you. Healthy. Very healthy. It's me. It's me. Be weird. I am going to suggest season 7 of Veep came out with Julia Louis-Dreyfus. It's the final one.
I'm finally going to watch that whole
I haven't
darn
watched
thing.
it at all yet.
Yeah, I have barely watched it.
I think I like comedy shows.
Yeah.
And political satire is like high on my list. I don't think there's a show that makes me laugh harder than that one.
Oh,
Awesome.
great.
And I've never seen such dark characters. And here's another little thing that I really enjoyed about it, which is quite fun, is I was like 3 seasons in, and then I realized they've never identified the political party because it doesn't matter.
Fantastic.
Beautiful.
I can't wait. I'm going to blitz through all of that in the next couple of months,
Yeah.
and then we'll do an episode about it.
Yeah.
That sounds great. I am going to recommend a band that I saw. I was at a conference in Montreal called Focalance International. Frankly, I'm going to be recommending bands from this conference for the next several months. But this first one I want to recommend, Los Tex-Maniacs. They are a conjunto band, and they've been around for more than 20 years. They won a Grammy Award in 2010. Man, I did not know that I needed conjunto music in my life.
I don't know what conjunto music is.
It is a style of music that sort of takes like Tex-Mex twists on an old sort of folk song kind of style of Mexican music. All of these guys live in Texas. They
With their exes? Sorry.
It is so fun. It is such a fun style of music, and Los Tex-Maniacs they're just so good. So this band specifically combines roots of rock and roll and jazz while also honoring the roots of conjunto Tejano. And good times, guys.
All right.
Such good times.
Nice.
Thank you so much again, Andrea Loewen.
Congratulations on your book.
Congratulations on your book.
Yeah.
So excited for you. Thank you for joining us for this wonderful conversation.
Girl.
Thank you for letting me.
Interrupted.
Oh.
I
like that. I like that. That was good.
We cut you off. You can hang out with us on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. You could rate and review us 5 stars on iTunes.
I'll make it subliminal. 5 stars.
5 stars. And stream us on Spotify, listen on Stitcher, however you like to do that.
5 stars. It's in now. It's in now. Yep. We recorded the Vancouver Public Library. Our producer is Andrea Gin, and we'll see you very soon.
Thank you.
Woo-woo.